all you young folks, I'm just telling you, it's just don't ever try to remind yourself as often as you can of the sacrifices that so many of our veterans have made.
I'm Janice.
I'm Ron, we spoke.
Hi Ron, nice to see you.
And I'm Pat.
Hi Pat.
Pat. Thank all of you for coming. So you know that Ron and I are veteran volunteers out of Northeast Georgia. So we've been doing these services for about, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years actually. So we've had the pleasure to honor people like yourself and tomorrow, as a matter of fact, we're going to Raven County. We have the last remaining World War II veteran. Raven County. We're going to be doing that at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
Wow.
100 years old.
1 year and 100 years old.
He just missed the Korean War, okay? But he was in the service in 1957 in Fort Chaffee.
Yeah.
And in Fort or Little Rock, there were the integration, riots or whatever.
I was down in that actually.
But
He was also there when Elvis was there. He was at Fort Chaffee when Elvis was there.
That's the important
Yeah,
bit.
that's the important part.
so that's where you got your voice.
Well, we're here to talk to this gentleman. So,
Right.
first of all, tell us about his military service. I've heard a little bit. What's the Army and Army
Right.
Reserve, right? You're in the reserves as well.
She's taking pictures of you. He graduated from the University of Nebraska and was in ROTC there. And so when they were drafting people at that time when he got out of college, and he decided that rather than get drafted, he would go ahead and enlist. So his story is that he went around to all the different branches of service to see, at what level he would go in if he joined different ones. And the Army offered him to come in as a private first class. So that's why he did that. And he went to Fort Chaffee, and I guess because he was a college graduate, they put him in the as an instructor in the clerk typist school. And I don't know whether he knew how to type or not. I guess he had to learn. But he said that he would play march music for them to type to when they were typing. And he actually enjoyed being a teacher so much that when he got out of the Army, he went back to college and got his teaching certificate, and went back and taught English in the high school that he went to. So,
It's interesting because Ron and I, as we do these, oftentimes we'll run into situations where maybe someone didn't do as much as someone else, and sometimes they're reluctant to even say they served or they're a veteran. They're a little embarrassed to say that, well, I was never overseas, I was never in a war. Right. We always say the same thing. It really doesn't matter. That's not what's important. What's important is that you were willing to do whatever you were told to do. You were just fortunate that sometimes you didn't have to go here. You didn't have to. Well, you know what? Good for you. You just got lucky.
When you're enlisted, you never know when something will happen. So
you don't know.
Right.
Right.
It just happened to be nothing happened.
Yeah.
But another thing too is that his brother had really bad allergies and couldn't pass the physical exam for service. So Dad felt it was his duty to be going to the service for the family.
So we don't come here empty-handed. So we always, we got a bag. So we always bring something with us. So I think I'm going to begin by saying that the first thing we're going to do, first thing we're going to do, this is called a certificate of veteran recognition that's prepared for your dad. And I'm going to read this to you. This is pretty nice. It says, the certificate of recognition made out to Jack McGee Hale. It says, in sincere appreciation for your service to our country and the United States Army, we gratefully acknowledge and honor your dedication and sacrifices protecting the freedom we hold so dearly. And it's signed by both Ron and myself, Ron and Pat. Okay? Pretty nice little certificate.
The next item is called a challenge coin. It's a medallion. On one side it says, we honor veterans with the letter V. On the other side, the insignias of the 5 major branches of service, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard. They're different, these coins are presented as a form of recognition. They're different versions of their historical origins. The one we like to relate to is It dates back really to World War I, the First World War. There were a lot of young men, pretty well-to-do, that went to the Ivy League schools, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Columbia, and the others. They wanted to get involved in the war, and they wanted to do something, and they were driven by patriotism. They wanted to do something exciting and adventurous and even dangerous. And what better way to do that than to fly aircraft in World War I, when the aircraft was a new method of transportation. So they get to Europe, and they're in a flying squadron, and one of the pilots decided he wanted to do something to improve the esprit de corps of his unit. So he had a coin minted, put it in a pouch, and carried it around his neck in a leather pouch. He was flying a mission one day, gets shot down by the Germans, and they capture him. They take away all his identification, and they come across this medallion, this coin. And they didn't know what it was, so they left him alone. Sometime later, his position was bombarded, and all the chaos and the disruption of the bombs falling, he escaped. Found his way back to the French lines, and the French captured him. They thought he was a saboteur, and they were going to execute him, because that's what you did with spies. Well, one of the French soldiers happened to recognize this medallion, because it's the only thing he had on him that could identify him, and he recognized the squadron that this medallion represented. He goes, yes, he is who he says he is. So instead of executing him, supposedly they gave him a bottle of wine and sent him on his way, which was a typical French thing to do. So he gets back to his unit, tells a story to his commander, who was so impressed by what happened, he had coins minted and given to each of his pilots. He said if it saved the life of one pilot, it might save the life of another. Well, over the years, this has evolved to where it's given as a form of recognition for individual actions, service, acts of bravery. It's used by police departments, it's used by fire departments and others, and other first responders. But it developed a social component. And what would happen is, when they would have their get-togethers, they would have their banquets and their social activities, the pilots would get together. Invariably, someone would take a coin out of his pocket, tap it on the bar. That was the challenge. The challenge was produce your coin, so everybody had to pull out their coin. If you didn't have your coin, guess who bought the next round of drinks? And the story goes, they weren't milkshakes. So, but if everyone had their coin, the one that did the tapping was on the hook, and you had to buy the. So, with that background and that history, it is my privilege to present to you this coin, this medallion, on behalf of Pat and myself, as fellow veterans. I'd like to thank you for your service. We present it like so.
Hold on to it, sweetie.
Take it, turn it over.
So we have some volunteers. We have lots of volunteers who work with us, and we have the privilege enough to have some folks who do some sewing and quilting. And anyway, we have a cool. It's cold weather. Would you like me to set that on your table?
That's
Why don't you
probably a
set
good
that-
idea.
Set that on the table for me.
You want to pretend
As cold weather comes along, we brought something that's going to make winter a little bit nicer.
That's very nice.
And it's going to be specific to the branch of service. And so if I can get it straight arm and get it upright. Let me see here. I got it back. Oh, here we go. Here we go. I'm going to show it to the guest of honor here first before he gets. Isn't that nice?
Wow.
Yeah, it is a wow. So this is what it looks like.
Oh my gosh.
So it's really the blankets
It's
are
not
made
the blanket that you associate with the Army.
Yeah, anyway, so when you're in the Army, the Army blankets were the
Green.
green,
Yeah.
very rough.
Oh, how nice. Oh, you'll love that.
And we always tell the story. We always tell the story that obviously Ron being an Army guy, me being Air Force, you know, we the Navy one. So the Army one, truth be told, it's just not the prettiest of all the ones that the Marines, we think the Navy.
Yeah, we think the Army was the least attractive.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. No offense to that one,
I haven't been in the Army, I can vouch for it.
but so anyway. But no,
It
so
keeps
that-
you warm all the same, right?
Yeah, it keeps
that's
you warm.
right.
Keeps
That's
you
really
warm all the
neat.
same. Keeps you-
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a pretty little blanket.
Well, what a nice thing for somebody to make too.
Yeah.
That's really lovely.
Well, they do all the tassels, the blankets are made, but they do all the hand
They
work.
do
Yeah.
the knotting, they do all that by hand.
Yeah, they do all that. So,
That is really neat.
you were a teacher, and you taught typing, is that correct? So one of the things you taught, I just read in the information. Were you good at it? Were you good? I figured you were. You did a good job. I knew
You
you
weren't
did.
even sure he knew how to type, so you had to teach himself first.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't know him back then. So and the boys are all too little to remember. So
Well, it sounded to me like just hearing the brief story, like he was smart, and he was actually doing a little sales. You know, I retired in the sales business, but it sounds like he had a little salesmanship to him because he was going around to the different branches trying
right,
to see who had the best deal.
that's exactly right.
And that's another funny story. We talk about, you know, Ron being in the Army, me being, people ask, well, how did you end up in the, and I'm like, well, hell, I found out that you get the same pay regardless of which one you go into. So it didn't make any sense to take it. Why would I want a gun? And I said, if I could be in an airplane or something like this, seemed like it was a better deal to me. So it sounds like this gentleman
Yeah.
figured out, well, let me see who's got the best deal before I go in.
That's right. That's
I
right.
think that's exactly what you did, didn't you? You were looking for the best deal.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. There you go. So,
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
so that's really why we came here today.
Well,
We
that's
don't-
really, really lovely. And I'm so glad that we had so much family that could be here today. 'Cause, you
For
know,
all you young folks, I'm just telling you, it's just don't ever try to remind yourself as often as you can of the sacrifices that so many of our veterans have made. I mean, it's just, the stories we hear, you would just be riveted to sit in your chair and listen to
yeah.
the people and you'd say to them like, you did what? Like, seriously, you did that? And yeah, that's what we had to do. You know, literally just risk their lives and think back.
Yeah, well, Brad could share some stories.
Yeah, he's
he's
got a
been
lot of
he's a
stories.
ranger and he's been to
Afghanistan
Afghanistan and Iraq. And
Yeah.
He's got lots of stories.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He was in Noriega's office.
Well, then.
He grabbed the book.
Oh, yeah, he would know. He would know. I mean, every year when they have the anniversary of D-Day, you know, as a matter of fact, I made a trip to France 2 years ago. I wanted to go to that cemetery, and hearing all those stories and repeated what those people did on that day, knowing that they're likely or never going to come back.
Yeah.
I mean, they went in knowing that this is it for me, but they did it anyway. And that's just
Yeah, those are really, truly amazing stories.
They are amazing
I guess we had.
So, my friend, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you guys. Thank you very much.
There we go. Nice smile.
6 months.
Bye, guys. Thank you.